So out of the 5 movies that came out on Christmas week, the third movie I got to see was Passengers. And you know what? I really enjoyed it. Now I'm sure this movie's been in the making for quite some time, because every time before the year starts when I look up upcoming movies, I would see it in the list several different years. And I have to say, it took a very long time for a trailer to happen, and when I finally saw the trailer, I was like, it could be okay. Like, I wanted it to be good because it was the director of Imitation Game, which I highly enjoyed, and it has 2 actors that I really enjoy as well, Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. And the very small plot synopsis that I originally had for the longest time was 2 people wake up early from hibernation on a trip to another world, but it's 90 years too soon. And I thought, heck, that sounds really interesting. Now I know that there's a script out there of what it used to be, and I think people have read it, and maybe it's leaked online, I don't know. But I never read it, I never look up anything like that, I never look up script leaks, because I want to be entertained, I want to be surprised when I see the movie, so I'm not going to judge it off of that. But the movie is about this ship that travels deep into space to another world that they're going to colonize. It's got like 5,000 passengers on board, plus a large amount of crew members. But for the most part, the ship, well, pretty much 100%, the ship is automated. While everyone is in deep sleep, because it's going to take several years, like over 100 years, to travel to the planet. Well, something goes awry, and Chris Pratt is awakened from hibernation and 90 years too soon. So he's going to die of old age before they even get to the planet they're supposed to be heading to. No one else is awake, he can't find a way to get asleep again, and he is trapped in isolation on this big spaceship in the middle of space. Eventually, Jennifer Lawrence is also woken up too soon, and now these 2 are together alone in space 90 years before their destination, and they eventually have a romance. Meanwhile, something's really going wrong with the ship, and they're going to have to fix it somehow. I mean, overall that's the premise, and pretty much I gave the whole movie, but that's what the trailer revealed, and that's what we got. Of course, there's something more to it than that. There is a twist, there is a moral dilemma, there's something deep within it that the trailer does not reveal, and for the most part, I really enjoyed this film. Now I have to say, the trailer didn't really do it for me. When I eventually finally got a trailer for it, because for the longest time I just knew the synopsis, I knew the title, I knew who was in it, that's it. I think it was just like a 1-sentence synopsis of 2 people waking up too early and 90 years too early to their destination, something like that. So it made me speculate. I was really excited for it. Then the trailer comes out and it's sort of, it could be okay. I mean, the trailer really didn't do it for me. My sister saw the trailer, refused to see the movie because she hated how cheesy it was and how at the end of the movie it's like, we were woken up for a reason. By the way, line does not happen in the movie, I believe. I do not remember it. I think I would have remembered it. And it's not some grand scheme. I think the problem is, when I saw the trailer too, it's like, ooh, there's going to be a twist. There's a reason why they woke up. Maybe it's because the ship goes through something and it's bound to happen, that there's going to be a breakdown and it sacrifices people in order to fix the ship or something, blah, blah, blah. There was a lot of speculations and a lot of it sounded dumb. Thankfully, the reasons why these people do wake up make far more sense. But like I said, I actually really enjoyed the film. I liked the performances, especially Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. I think they were both great. I think they had great chemistry. I liked both characters. Now I will say this, Chris Pratt's character is more of the fully developed character. I'm not saying that Jennifer Lawrence's character isn't fully developed. She has a character arc. They both have character arcs, but Chris Pratt is just more developed and feels more defined. Which ultimately makes sense. He's the main character, and pretty much she is the supporting character. But for those of you that wanted a little bit more development with their character, it might be a little bit harder to find. I mean, like I said, both have character arcs. It's just that Jennifer Lawrence's character arc might be a little too disappointing to many people. Also, one little nitpicky thing I have with Jennifer Lawrence, I think she's a great actress. I like her in many things. But unfortunately, there's a few moments in this film, just very nitpicky things. But whenever she cries in this film, or at least maybe just once, maybe twice, there's a few times, I believe, where when she cries, her face contorts in a way where it's a little... Ugh. Now granted, crying is not usually pretty. I've seen a lot of people cry that have really bad facial expressions. But sometimes that's noticeable in movies and it doesn't feel real, it feels forced. Other than the crying moment, which I think might just be one moment where her face contorts in a way that made me a little like, ugh. Other than that, she's completely fine. Both actors are great. And the little bit that Lawrence Fishburne is in this movie, he's really great as well. I think all these actors did a fine job. Completely fine. For the most part, the science fiction in this movie was pretty interesting. There's a lot of different ideas, a lot of things borrowed from other films, grant you, but a lot of things that was very interesting in this film and really made you think. Not to the level that other really great sci-fi films make you think, but enough to feel like it heightens a blockbuster type movie where it's like, hey, there's a little bit of thinking involved. That's more than that can be said for other blockbuster films. And there's this moral dilemma that Chris Pratt goes through in this film that is really handled well. I think they could have delved a little deeper into it, but there's a few more subtle and more visual things in this that other people might not pick up on that was really great and really showed his character development and how he changes a person throughout the film. Yeah, there's a bit of a dark, twisted side to this movie that I really enjoyed. Mainly because I really didn't expect this movie to go there. With that said, I still feel it could have been a little darker and it wouldn't have hurt the film. The spaceship is really cool, the sets are cool. There's a lot of neat visual things about this movie and a lot of scenes that I highly enjoyed. In a way, it also reminds me of Insidious. If you remember Insidious, if you've seen it, it's a horror film, yes. It's not sci-fi or anything like that, it's horror. But it's 3 different sides of horror as the movie progresses. See, in Insidious, the first act is a haunted house film. The second act, pretty much a possession movie. And then the third act, it goes into astral projection. And so it feels like different subgenres of the supernatural horror within the film. 3 different genres, but all supernatural horror. Passengers is just like that. It feels like a sci-fi film, but it's 3 different subgenres of that sci-fi universe, of that sci-fi genre within each act. The first act, think of it as Martian or other movies where some guy is stranded alone in space, because the first act of the film is Chris Pratt on the ship all alone. Everyone is asleep in hibernation. He can't get back to sleep. There seems to be no way, and he's stranded. It's a stranded movie. It's an isolation movie. The second act of the film, Jennifer Lawrence comes in. It becomes a romantic sci-fi film. And so yes, it does have a heavy romance in this film, so there is some cheesiness to it. There is some sort of eye-rolling moments. So if you don't like typical romance, then you might be bored with this film. I'm warning you there. I knew going into it there was going to be romance, because when I saw the subgenres of the whole movie, one of them was romance. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be a romance film. And so then the last act of the film is your typical blockbuster sci-fi film. To be honest, I like this about the movie, and I felt like each of the genres really meld into each other as the movie progresses, and it completely works. At least I feel that way. So for the most part, I really liked it, but what about the negatives? Well, I do have some negatives with the film, that's for sure. Other than Jennifer Lawrence's contorted face when she cries at one scene or 2. There's this one montage at the beginning of the film where it tries to show Chris Pratt losing his mind and losing his sanity with being all alone. Like, it goes into a progression where he goes into a deep, dark, depressed state. Enough to try to kill himself, okay? Unfortunately, I feel the montage in this particular scene where he's all happy and having the time of his life and then slowly progresses into loneliness and depression, I feel that the montage is so short and the change into depression is just so quick that I feel that if the montage was longer, if it showed more of the repetitiveness of his life now on the ship, I would have believed that progression a lot more. Not saying that it didn't do a good job. I think it could have done a way, way better job, though. Another little problem with this film, which isn't a major gripe for me, but could be a gripe for a lot of people. So I don't see this as a negative, but I'm helping you understand what this movie is like. If you haven't seen it or you're not sure about it, chances are you've probably already seen it. But if you're the kind of sci-fi fan that loves really good thinking films, loves movies with a lot of philosophical ideas about the human condition and sci-fi technology, if you're a big sci-fi buff of those type of movies, Passengers is not on that level, that is for sure. No, when it comes to dumb, fun sci-fi movies and sci-fi movies that are more of a thinking man's film, Passengers lies somewhere way in between. Because it has dumb, fun action, dumb, fun sci-fi that is a little bit Hollywoodized, that is a little bit more of a blockbuster. It does have some moral dilemmas, it does have some things that make you think. Again, not to the level of some sci-fi masterpieces. So if you're used to that and you want that out of Passengers, you're not going to get it. You're just going to get a little bit of thinking and a little bit of the human condition. Well, technically a lot of the human condition, just not delved into the extent that other sci-fi films will. So again, if you're that kind of sci-fi fan, you're going to hate Passengers. But if you still want to give it a try, go into it thinking that it's not going to be like that. I didn't think it was going to be like that. I thought it was going to be more blockbustery. And the fact that there is ideas in it and there is some moral choices and there's some human condition and some really interesting ideas was just enough to heighten it to be a really enjoyable film. Now, my major gripe of the film might be very divisive to some people, but the last act of the film really it just wasn't the level of the first two acts for me. I think the first part was amazing, second part was really great as well, and then the third part was just sort of predictable blockbuster stuff. Now, I'm not saying that the last act was bad. There was a fun aspect to it. There are some things with the character arc that I really liked in it, but for the most part, it did feel like it went to the predictable route. Have you ever seen a movie where you see the first two acts and you really like it, and you see where the movie is going, and you feel, please don't go the predictable route because you still have the opportunity to do something very different, but instead they do the predictable route? This is what it's like for me. I think the first two acts alone are really great and can lay the groundwork to something really great, something really amazing, but instead they do the predictable route. Not that I say the predictable route is boring or bad, it's just not as good as what it could be. And I do feel that the character development of Jennifer Lawrence's character, when she goes about the change, when she completes her character arc, it does feel a little too undeserving. Like, there's a change that happens and you feel like, oh, it's going to go the predictable route, she's going to change into doing this, but they don't give enough to really make you feel like she believably changes her mind about something. Like, the pieces are there, but it's not developed fully to the point where it's believable. And so there is a hokiness to the ending, which I found a little dissatisfying. But really, my main gripes of the film just lay in the last act of the film. The rest of it, I really, really enjoyed. And I still enjoyed the last act, just not as much as the other two. For me, I still really enjoyed Passengers. I went into it with very low expectations, and sometimes that really helps. Passengers, I really enjoyed it. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. So did you see Passengers? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please check out my movie reviews of 2015 or 2016. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.